Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 586, and today's date is February 7th, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Now, before we get started, I just want to thank those people who donated to the X22Report.com site. I really do appreciate the donations. I am very grateful for them. Thank you very much. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand the U.S. government, the central bankers, they need to control the flow of information. I mean, according to Naomi Wolf's 10 steps on how to close down a society, we understand that this is one of the steps. We understand they issue propaganda to the corporate media, and the corporate media goes out and publishes it, reports on it. Doesn't matter if it's true, if it's a lie, or anything like that. It's complete propaganda to make the American people and the world think in a certain way. And they cannot stand the alternative/new media. And they're trying to figure out all different ways to shut it down. And of course, we've seen it in the past where they shut down sites. They shut down like YouTube, Facebook. If the reporting really goes on and they hit a subject, all of a sudden something is completely shut down. But there have been laws and bills, I should say bills, not really laws, that have been proposed. And here's one of them. And you can see the direction that they are going by the bills that they're trying to propose. There is a bill that was proposed by Senator John McCain, in which he proposed that bloggers be fined up to $300,000 for offensive statements, photos, videos posted by visitors on comment boards. I mean, does that go against free speech? I mean, it certainly does. It violates our rights. But this is the things that they propose. So you can see their mindset. You can see what they're trying to do here. Now, the FCC, as we know, they are working to make the internet a public utility. And the first step for them controlling something without people knowing about it is to tax and to issue licenses. And we've discussed this before. And we can see that the FCC is heading down that road because they need to control what is being said on the internet because it is countering everything the government is trying to do with their propaganda. And we understand from Amendment 114, the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012, Section 501, the United States government is now allowed to use propaganda against the American people. And they have been doing this for quite a while. And we can see that it's just not the government that is shutting us down. Their connections with search engines, with other internet companies, they are kind of helping because if they report something, those companies kind of block certain sites. We've seen it with Google many times before where they'll say, there's malware, and you see that page where it comes out, enter at your own risk because there could be malware and it could infect your computer. This is a way of blocking a site where they don't want people to go to. Now, sometimes the website owner has to prove that no, there is no malware whatsoever. It is perfectly safe, and it comes down. Sometimes YouTube channels are brought down, and then people complain and saying, why did you bring me down? Give me the reason. I've never had any strikes against me, and they're brought back up. But they continually try to censor what people are trying to say and what people are trying to see. Right now, we see the TSA. They are getting more power. U.S. Representative John Katko introduced two bills. He's looking to effectively close the borders using terrorism. Katko's bill will direct the TSA Office of Inspection Accountability Act, H.R. 719, requiring TSA now to conduct criminal investigations, spending at least 50% of their time investigating, apprehending, or detaining individuals suspected of committing a crime or tax evasion. And like we said before, the government needs to find revenue. And they will stop people from leaving this country. They will close down the borders and have the TSA, DHS, or any other law enforcement to stop people from leaving. And we see this has started already. We see that this is on the way. The bill will now result in the arrest of anyone for any alleged crime whatsoever that will apply to taxes. Katko is constructing a highly dangerous version of the Berlin Wall around all American citizens. He is converting the TSA into a police force less concerned about air safety and focused more on catching anyone the government can argue violates some law, federal or state. It is so broad, this would apply to domestic disputes as well. So you can see the path we are heading down. A complete police state. And they're creating or proposing bills that will close the system down. And this goes right to our 10 steps of closing down a society. In the EU, what do we see? Well, the EU wants to snoop on Skype to combat terrorist threats. And we know this is not what it's about whatsoever. They want to listen in to everyone's conversation. They're keeping track of the people, making social profiles, and making lists of those people who are a threat to their authority. And we can see when we look across the world and we understand what's going on here that they are creating police forces to deal with civil disobedience. It's happening in France, in Spain, in Italy, in the UK, the entire Eurozone. They have their own special police force, and here in the United States. They are trying to close down all of these countries, to keep the people in fear, and to ramp up with their militarized police force. And this is ongoing because they realize what's coming. They realize the collapse is right around the corner. They realize there's nothing they can do to stop this. Yes, will they try to cover it up with war, with an event? Yes, but it will not stop the collapse. So at the same time, these systems are collapsing. People are rioting. People are struggling to find food, to find water, to protect their families, to try to understand what's going on. And a lot of these people will not be able to handle the situation. They're not prepared for this. And it reminds me of The Matrix, when they first released Neo from the Matrix, and he started to realize what was going on, and they said, he's going to pop, he's going to pop. And a lot of people will pop. A lot of people will have a nervous breakdown because they don't understand what just happened. One day you are fine. You can go to the market. You have a job. And you're thinking about going on vacation. You're thinking about everything else except what is really coming, because the United States government, the central bankers, has kept everyone in the dark. And of course, they're going to try to cover this up with, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. You name it, it's the same players all the time. They're the ones who did this to us. And I forgot the Islamic State, of course, which is a proxy army for the United States government, Israel, UK, and other nations. So we can see where we are headed. And this is why they have increased the spying on all the people, because they need to understand who you know, who you've been talking to, where you are going. If you have extra money, are you hiding money? Are you prepping? They need to know all this information. And we can see out in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, they are pushing for war, and they're not stopping. You can see that the U.S. government central bankers, they only think in one way, and that is war at this point in time. Putin put forth a peace plan. Did you see a peace plan from the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the President of the United States, who got the Nobel Peace Prize for peace? Where was his peace plan? Non-existent. Where was any of the peace plans from Europe or from the United States? Non-existent. And we can see Biden is out there. Joe Biden said that Kiev had a right to defend itself against Russia, and that the United States would provide it with the means to do so. Well, the thing he's leaving out is that Ukraine is the one that is attacking. So really, it's the actual opposite. And I always said this. Government officials, whenever they speak, think about what they're saying and think in the opposite way. What he's saying is that, those southeastern people, they have a right to defend themselves. But he's trying to switch it around and make it seem like, they're attacking us, so we have the right to defend ourselves, where actually the opposite is happening. They're the aggressors, they're the attackers, and they will not let up. And he went on to say that too many times President Putin has promised peace and delivered tanks, troops, and weapons. Again, saying this without proof. He's putting out propaganda to convince everyone that this is what's happening. But when you look, and you look past his propaganda, where are the satellite images in 3D color showing the insignias of these tanks? Where are the troops? They have absolutely no proof. And believe me, if Russia was in there, of course, again, they would use air power in the beginning, and it would be over in probably, 2-3 days? Kiev would be crushed. But at this point in time, we can see they have no proof. So they have to continually use propaganda to convince everyone. And many people do believe this, as if that's what they say, it has to be true. No, at this point, we need proof. And guess what? They can't provide it. And we can see that Angela Merkel and President Hollande, they are trying to broker peace because they realize that without peace, this war is going to go hot, and it's going to involve Europe. And they're scratching their heads, thinking to themselves, do we really want this? And they're saying, no, we have to go with peace here. But again, NATO, the United States, the central banking system, they know the system's collapsing. They don't want peace, and this is why they're pushing for war. The chief commander of NATO said the proposal made by Russian President Putin to end the conflict in eastern Ukraine was completely unacceptable, and we have to push for war. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Because if they really wanted peace, if you really want something like peace, where you want to stop the killing, you would make every single effort to stop the killing. It's very easy to do. It's only when you don't, that's when you don't have peace. And we can see they're on their way. Sergei Lavrov has lashed out at the U.S. for their double standards over Ukraine and taking steps that only promoted further aggression. One of the major sticking points of the crisis so far has been the failure of Kiev to engage in talks with the militia leaders in east of the country. They are excluding the people in the southeastern section and they're dodging all these peace meetings. They don't want peace. Their attention is for war only, and that is it. That is it. So we see France and Germany. They're trying to push forward this peace initiative. This is the last-ditch attempt to end the war in Ukraine. And French President Hollande said, with Angela Merkel, that the crisis cannot be solved militarily. Well, depends on how you're looking at this. Will it cover up the collapse? Will it bring us into World War III? Well, this is what the central bankers want. Hollande described the peace talks he and Merkel held with the president of Russia and Ukraine this week as one of the last chances for peace. If we don't find not just a compromise but a lasting peace agreement, we know perfectly well what the scenario will be. It has a name. It's called war. And this is coming from President Hollande. He understands what is coming. He realizes that this war is going to be fought not just in Russia, not just in Ukraine, but in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Europe. And with today's technology, with ballistic missiles, it will be fought in the United States. This is not World War II. They have the ability to launch missiles that will reach the United States, that will explode in the cities and kill many, many people. Times have changed. The weapons are more advanced. This war will be like none we have ever seen in our lifetime. And eventually, when the central bankers aren't winning, they will use nuclear weapons in the end. Biden went on to say, because of these peace talks and because the Europeans are questioning the sanctions, he says they're inappropriate and annoying. Does that sound like peace? Or does he say, Europe, get in line? You have to be in line with the United States because we are going to war. Stop with your complaining about these sanctions. Stop it. You're annoying us. Because we're going in one direction and one direction only, and that is to war. McCain is out there. He is saying, and he has criticized the German Chancellor Angela Merkel for not yielding in supplying arms to Ukraine. They don't want peace. One might think she does not know or does not care that the people are being slaughtered in Ukraine. Yes, John McCain, they are being slaughtered, so stop shelling the civilian areas. It's very simple. But again, they're not going to. The peace talks right now are not working out. Poroshenko is doing exactly what the central bankers want. John Kerry was in Ukraine. His instructions are, start the war. Do whatever you have to, but start the war. Poroshenko says Ukraine doesn't need peacekeepers now. Poroshenko says priority is ceasefire and Russian pullout. But you see how they're continually using something that isn't true so they can push the war. Russia is not there, so they can't pull out. Basically, what they really want is the return of Crimea and the southeastern section. This is what they're really saying to Russia. And this is not going to happen. Because the people have the right to fight for freedom, for democracy. Just like the people who that were involved in the coup d'etat of Ukraine, where the United States backed them, they had a right, according to the United States, to fight and remove the president. Well, the people in the southeast don't want the puppet government. They should have the same right, right? But again, as we know, the United States, when they want a regime change, they back the people. Freedom, democracy, freedom of speech. Once they have the puppet government, the people are terrorists. And we need to kill every single one of them. This is their thought process. During this whole period of peace, and France and Germany meeting with Putin, talking about peace, Kiev-led forces attempted on Saturday to launch a large-scale offensive against the Donetsk area. There is no peace at this time. I'm hoping there is peace because I do not want war. And I've said this in the past. Once they push this event and once they push war, this is when all of us have to start standing up and saying, listen, we are not going. We know what you're doing. We know it's the central bankers. And this just can't happen in the United States. It has to happen throughout Europe. It has to happen in Canada. It has to happen in Australia. And we need to band together to say enough is enough. At this point, people will be awake. People will be, wait a minute, do we really want to fight in this war? Do I really want to send my daughter, my son? Do I really want my brother, my cousin to go off to war? No, we don't. And we can see that they will not stop until the very end, until they get the war started. They will use false flags. They will do anything they can. They will use propaganda like they've been using. And they will not stop until they get their way, one way or another. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.